Okay, I see the prompt. We're being live streamed, so we good to go?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. It's by my clock 12:32 on February 16th. So we'll call our February meeting of the County Prison Board to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll ask Sheriff McCann to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible,
liberty and justice
for all.
Thanks, Sheriff. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to review the minutes from the January meeting. And if so, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question, the only thing that I would note from them is that if we remember, Sheriff McAndrew had some technical difficulty. He was present throughout the whole meeting. He just couldn't participate because of the technical difficulty with his machine. So other than that, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes from the January meeting are approved. Tracy, anybody from the public wishing to address agenda items?
I have no agenda emails. I have 2 emails to read later on.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on then to the first motion, number 22-3009. Motion to approve all current payables for the Community Corrections Center and the prison. I trust that everybody's had an opportunity to review everything that was sent around. That is, it always is, very efficiently in advance of the motion of our meetings. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the current payables.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The current payables for the prison and the Community Correction Center are approved. Next, we'll go to Controller DeVillio for your report, item 22-3010.
Yes, Judge. The Controller's report of the prison inmate and canteen accounts for January of 2022. The Controller's office reviewed the prison inmate and canteen account reconciliations, which were prepared by the prison business office for the month of January 2022, and found no discrepancies between the reconciliations and the bank statements. The balance in the inmate account was $477,104.53 as of January 31st of 2022. The balance in the canteen checking account was $779,745.23 as of January 31st of 2022. And in addition, as of January 31st, the canteen account owned 2 certificates of deposit, one valued at $15,000 and the other at $132,338.08, $147,338.08. And that concludes my report for January.
Thank you, Mr. DeVilla. Anybody, any questions for the controller? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve his report.
So moved.
Got a movement. Do I have a second
Second.
on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The controller's report is approved. Thank you, Mr. DeBilio. So now we're going to beam in Norm McConaughey and Brian Jeffers for the report on the Community Corrections Center. Welcome, Norm. Welcome, Mr. Jeffers.
Good morning, Your Honor. Thank you. Norm is going to take over now and start doing these reports for you on a monthly basis.
Right.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good afternoon, I should say. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Here he is.
Oh, okay.
Fine.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
House arrest report for January 2022. Program totals. Adult house arrest had 147 participants. Juvenile house arrest had 7. Program revenue total, $52,339.74. Program expenses, $63,753.96. Program completions is 26. Program violations was 6. Outstanding warrants, work release has 1, house arrest has 1. And budget overall, overtime is at 15%, expenses at 6%, revenues at 8%. We had 1 staff member returning from FMLA in January, and 1 staff member still remains on FMLA. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McConaughey?
Sure. Oh, Judge, just real quick, there's a notation there about the percentage of overtime. You're going to see the overtime percentage. It looks like it's high. It's not really high. What we did was we cut $15,000 out of the overtime budget from last year to this year. So it went from 25,000 down to 10,000. We believe that we'll be within the number of 10,000 for overtime for the over the course of the year.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that clarification. With that clarification, any questions for Mr. McConaughey or Mr. Jeffers? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the report for the Community Corrections Center.
Take that motion.
And a second
Second.
on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. McConaughey. You can beam yourself back to
Thank you.
back to
Thank you,
work.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, we'll head to item 223012, the Warden's report. Warden Betty?
Good afternoon, members of the board. The in-house population, the average daily population for January was 626 inmates, 457 were county inmates. We averaged 562 adult males, 2 juvenile males, and 61 adult females. The average daily population of U.S. Marshal detainees for the month was 169. Our overtime and out-of-county boarding reports are attached. The staffing update, actually, I accidentally sent a rather blank one, so I'll give you the actual numbers. We have 162 correctional officers on shift, 4 out on workers' comp, 1 on continuous FMLA, 62 with intermittent FMLA. We have 3 on administrative leave, and we have 10 vacancies. That's a total of 180 full-time officers. Additionally, we have a vacancy for Deputy Warden of Security. We have a sergeant vacancy and 1 office assistant vacancy. Budget as of January 31st, revenue was at 22% and expenses were at 6%. Extraordinary occurrence reports, there were 4 in the month of January. On January 1st, a newly committed male inmate was uncooperative with the booking process and began acting out and talking irrationally. He was placed in the emergency restraint chair for his safety and for the safety of staff. On January 21st, a female inmate was refusing to move to a new cell and then began threatening suicide. The decision was made to extract her from the cell and place her in a camera cell, and due to her non-compliance, staff had to administer OC spray prior to entering her cell. Staff didn't enter the cell, placed her in the emergency restraint chair, and moved her to a camera cell. And I said 4, but there's only 3. The third incident in the month was on January 26th. A female inmate expressed suicidal ideations. Staff attempted to move her to a camera cell. However, she became non-compliant and began threatening staff with physical harm. This inmate was placed in the emergency restraint chair to prevent her from harming herself or others. PREA, there were 7 PREA investigations completed in the month of January. 3 of them were inmate on inmate sexual harassment allegations, and all 3 were deemed unfounded. 1 was an inmate on inmate sexual misconduct allegation. It was deemed founded. 1 was a staff on inmate sexual harassment allegation. It was deemed unfounded. And 2 were staff on inmate sexual misconduct allegations. 1 was unfounded and 1 was unsubstantiated. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Warden. Is the new agreement in place yet with the U.S. Marshals?
Oh, yes, yes. There is a new agreement that's in place. As of February 1st, we're now getting it's I believe it's $102 per day per individual.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any questions for the Warden?
I do, Judge. Warden, you said that how many employees were on intermittent FMLA?
62.
62. So that represents a little over 30% of the overall. And
Yes.
just wondering, can you explain to the board how the FMLA status coincides with whether it be voluntary or mandatory overtime that's required by the correctional officers?
Maybe. And then I say that because individuals, they get out intermittent FMLA through doctor's notes. They coordinate matters with our human resources department. And when you have intermittent FMLA, if you're experiencing a flare up or your symptoms are acting up, you could potentially call off for your regular shift. You could also, if you're there and it starts acting up, you could invoke that intermittent FMLA to avoid being mandated to work an overtime shift.
So you can still have the option of working overtime if you're on FMLA, but you can't be forced to work the mandatory overtime. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. How about new correctional officers? Do you have any new ones coming in?
Yes, as a matter of fact, earlier today I had sent the list to the board members. We had just gotten through a series of interviews last week, and because there is 10 vacancies, there's 10 individuals that I'm recommending for hiring. So hopefully we get those filled in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Are you done, Mr. DeBillio? Any more questions?
Thank you.
Okay, didn't want to cut you off. Anybody else have any questions for the Warden? Okay. All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve his report.
Motion.
Do I have a second
Second.
on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The Warden's report is approved. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is new business. Item 223013 is a motion to review and approve a proposed policy regarding operation and management of the prison. I circulated this to everyone on Monday, and with the idea that it would be put on today's agenda, and we could have a discussion about it and hopefully vote to approve it. Has everybody had an opportunity to review it?
Yes.
Yes.
Frank, David, do I need to read this into the record?
I think it's attached to the agenda. I don't think we need to read it.
Yeah, I don't think it's required to read it in.
Okay.
But
If I-
I don't know if you want to, are you going to ask for a motion and then on the question, or do you want comments?
Well, yeah, no, I intend to do that. I just wanted to know procedurally if I needed to read it, because I thought if I did read it, I'd probably put half the group to sleep. So, because I'm known for that. I will entertain a motion to approve this policy as presented.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. On the question.
I have questions.
Okay.
A couple things. So with regard to the the third whereas paragraph on page 1.
Okay.
It states, whereas the prison board is vested with the exclusive authority to appoint a warden, ...
Yeah.
I'm going to ask, I guess who prepared this, which is Mr. Soffinelli
Yes, ma'am.
or Frank, either one of you can answer. If Title 61 states the words exclusive authority when discussing the board's ability to appoint a warden under section 1733.
The statute specifically grants the board the authority to hire. It does not use the word exclusive.
Okay. And Frank, you previously sent me an email, it was a while back, where you talked about how the home rule charter grants the hiring and firing power to the commissioners. Title 61 permits the board to appoint a warden, and then the warden to appoint deputy wardens and others at the prison with the approval of the board. Do you remember sending that to me?
I think I do, Commissioner. That was probably what, 2020? I remember a discussion about, it was a while ago, yes.
Right. So would you agree, Frank, that the home rule charter and Title 61 are in conflict with one another?
Yeah, so both the home rule charter and the third class county code specifically speak to hiring powers and authority of the commissioners. So I don't think there's any question that the commissioners have the ability to hire and fire employees. I think specifically Title 61, which deals exclusively with the prisons and with prison boards, does give the prison board authority clearly under 1733, as stated, the authority to appoint a warden and then any deputies and any assistants or corrections officers. But to your point, yes, this was a discussion that was started some time ago, and I think I did do a memo, whenever I did it.
And by the mere fact that the home rule charter grants the authority to the commissioners for hiring and firing, using the words exclusive authority in Title 60, as referenced in Title 61 and indicated in this, actually it's not referenced in 61, but I'm saying that let me start over.
The term exclusive should be removed from the document.
Okay, so my point is that in the home rule charter gives the authority to the commissioners. Title 61 gives certain authority to the board. We agree that, or you per your memo, that they are in conflict. So by adding the words exclusive authority, that is even more contradicting of the home rule charter. So you agree that it should not be indicated exclusive authority in that third whereas, Pat?
Yeah, I think the whereas clause is fine, but I would recommend removing the term exclusive.
And I think section 33, specifically what it does say is.
I have it right in front of me. I can read it if you want it.
No, it just says the board shall appoint a warden of the county correctional institution. The warden, subject to the approval of the board, may appoint such deputy or deputies, assistant or assistants, or corrections officers as may be required in the taking care of the county correctional institution. The number and
Right.
compensation of such deputies, assistants, or correction officers shall be fixed by the county salary board. So I believe that that would be the proper language to be used. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with the language of the statute. I mean, look, as I look at it, notwithstanding the term exclusive, I think the whereas clause does capture the statute, but sure, it wouldn't be incorrect if you use the precise language within the statute and then cite it to the statute.
Also, with the issue as to whether or not the home rule charter rules or Title 61 rules, it's my understanding and my review of the case law that only statutes of statewide application, such as the election code, typically trump the home rule charters, and that by its own terms, Title 61 only applies to a limited category of municipalities, but does not have statewide application. And I'm going to just note for the record that the case of St. Fleur versus City of Scranton, the Commonwealth Court stated, while the power of home rule municipalities to impose tax rates can be limited by, quote, statutes which are applicable in every part of the Commonwealth, end quote, the act that was at issue in that case is not applicable, quote, in every part, end quote, of Pennsylvania, because the act only applies to specific categories of municipalities and does not include home rule municipalities. So I'm taking the position that under that case law, that supports the theory that the home rule charter actually trumps Title 61. Whether or not the attorneys want to answer that or just, I mean, are you aware of that case, either one of you?
I'm aware that issue has come up.
Yeah, I am, and I've argued in multiple courts, obviously, regarding our home rule charter and the like. So, yeah, I generally agree, Commissioner, that in a statute and/or regulation, which is applicable statewide to all entities, all municipalities, whether they be townships, cities, boroughs, would trump the home rule charter. However, if you're going to follow a particular statute, so in this case, we have a prison board as opposed to an oversight board, and if we're going to establish ourselves in that regard, then we must comply at least with Title 61, unless we've developed policies under our home rule charter that are contrary to that don't usurp the provisions of Title 61, but may add to them. And I'm not aware that we do. So therefore, I think that we are required to follow Act 61 simply because we have a prison board, and that's the decision along the way that someone made long before us, as opposed to having a prison oversight board. That's my
I
understanding.
respectfully disagree based upon
Okay.
this case. However, do you have any documentation, case law, anything that specifically states that Title 61, in the event that it conflicts with the home rule charter, shall trump the home rule charter?
No, I don't have anything available right here with me, no.
Thank
I'm
you.
just talking my general understanding of it.
But we have no actual legal support for that position, correct?
No, other than we obviously have an established prison board and we follow Title 61 with regards to, for example, 1731, which is the makeup and composition of the board, 1732 with regards to how the board, conducts its meetings and the frequency of those. So, and I say respectfully, we can't cherry pick. So if we're going to follow a statute, then we follow the statute. We can't pick which subsections of the statute we're going to follow.
Can we agree, though, that, again, with regard to Title 61 and the home rule charter, when there's an inconsistency, again, you have no legal documentation, either you or Attorney Salfinelli, indicating that the Title 61 would trump the home rule charter? Can we agree to that?
And I'm say it again, I apologize, one more time.
Can we agree that you have no legal authority saying that when a term or condition of Title 61 conflicts with the home rule charter, that Title 61 takes precedence?
No, I don't.
You're assuming that based upon your being an attorney, but you don't have any legal support for that. Is that correct?
No, look, I get it. I feel like I'm under cross-examination.
I'm sorry.
Listen,
I'm just trying to get the point
I
across.
literally don't have anything here in front of me, but
Okay.
here's just simply what I know and based on my experience. And I have argued our home rule charter. I was general counsel for the study commission. So, and I put in my memo previously, there is inconsistencies. There's inconsistencies with every home rule charter and state statutes, just because home rule charters typically don't keep up as quickly with state regulations and as quickly as those change. So when there is an inconsistency, you simply do defer back to the home rule charter. However, in instances in which you decide, or someone decides from a governmental perspective, that you're going to undertake whatever function, in this case, a prison board, then you must follow the directives as outlined in Title 61 with regards to a prison board, unless we have other policies already established under our home rule charter regarding prison boards, which we do not. So,
But aside from your opinion, do you have anything to support your position?
No, but I can get you something over
That would
time
be
here,
great.
but I can tell you as well, I don't think the case you're citing to specifically stands for the proposition, at least in this case, that Title 61 is completely obviated by the home rule charter.
There were factual differences, obviously, between what we're talking about here and
Yeah.
this, the case that I cited, the St.
Yeah.
Fleur case. However, the proposition that came out of that was that if the home rule charter is only trumped by statutes which are applicable in every part of the Commonwealth. That's how I'm reading it. And because Title 61 is not applicable throughout the Commonwealth, but to only a certain category of municipalities, I believe the home rule charter would trump. And even assuming this case, we find it, let's for sake of argument, not to be applicable, while I respect your opinion as an attorney, and you do a great job as chief counsel, by the way, you have nothing in the form of, a statute or case law or anything supporting your position. So that's the point that I wanted to make respectfully to you.
No, I understand your point.
So page 2, number 3 talks about any requests for information, suggestions regarding the operation or management, including personnel issues, shall be made by email to the warden along with the entire prison board. Now, personnel issues and personnel files, they're handled by HR, and whether it be Ted at the prison, who's our HR compliance officer, or the people we have here in the government center in the HR department, Ted is actually part of that department. So is the board, is this saying that the board is preventing commissioners from accessing information from its HR department over which it has authority? Anyone?
Dave,
I'm not sure.
I'll leave that to you.
I think the intention was to get some clarity and consistency as to how these matters are conducted, because the statutes don't give unilateral authority anywhere. And we had concerns that I think you, to your credit, identified in the way that internal personnel matters were being conducted.
Right, and Dave,
prompted the recognition that we need to set some standards.
And I believe the standards that I was talking about was how investigations are conducted in terms of keeping confidentiality, how to report it to HR, who conducts the investigation, none of which is really addressed here. I mean, the whole purpose, in my opinion, of this policy is basically just to strip the commissioners, more specifically me, since I'm the only commissioner who actually takes interest in the prison and has since day one, of any power. But on number 3, it says any request for information, including personnel issues, must go through the warden and the prison board. So I don't think that's very clear. I think it causes problems because personnel issues fall under HR, and the commissioners have the authority over HR. And whether or not a commissioner should or should not get involved in a investigation doesn't mean that he or she can or cannot. There's nothing stating that a commissioner cannot get involved in the event that he or she sees something not being done correctly in an investigation, particularly when the investigation is brought to her attention in the first place. But I think number 3 is problematic because now is the prison board trying to assert some sort of authority over our human resources department? Because I think if we call Joanne or Amanda or whoever in our HR department currently, and we ask for personnel information concerning somebody at the prison, are they going to be are they expected to say no to the commissioners and commit insubordination? So I think that's an issue. Number 5, personnel/human relation matters. Again, no prison board member shall participate in or intervene in any such matters. Now, again, you keep saying prison board members, but 3 of us are commissioners. And again, HR issues fall under the purview of the commissioners. So while, again, you may disagree whether or not a commissioner should or should not participate, that does not mean that we cannot participate. And there's nothing indicating in Title 61 that the prison board can strip the commissioners of that authority. So I have an issue with that. Also, number 6, the warden shall inform the prison board of any personnel, human relations issues, investigations, or disciplinary actions at an executive session of a prison board meeting at which a quorum is present. First of all, I want to talk about the executive session that we had. An executive session, in my understanding, that we had on February 1st, they're supposed to be prison board members. I don't know why Warden Betty, who is not a prison board member, was invited and directed to attend. I find that to be very concerning. But secondly, basically, the board is going to be taking on liability for HR issues, investigations, and disciplinary actions. And Attorney Mark Powell, you have taken the position prior to my administration, I believe, or maybe when we started, that you think that your position on this board raises a potential conflict in and of itself in case something of a criminal nature arises. And I see that. Unfortunately for you, it's set by statute and your attendance is required. However, this presents even a more of a potential conflict for Mr. Powell, in the sense that in the event that an HR issue or personnel issue is brought before the board and an employee is accused of some sort of criminal conduct or criminal offense, then we have a conflict with a prison board, specifically the DA, who will ultimately probably have to handle that. So, and I think it puts potential liability on the board. All the board members are now, the commissioners, we are the ones who always end up getting named in lawsuits when people are disciplined or terminated. But now this opens up the rest of the board to liability. So I think that, the board should really consider that. Also, number 7, the appointment or termination of any deputy or deputies ... shall be approved by the majority vote of the prison board. Nowhere in Title 61 does it state that the board has the authority to terminate. And you cannot possibly argue that the fact that it gives the board the authority to hire, that it inherently gives it the authority to fire. I think as attorneys, we all hear and we all know that they always say if the legislation intended to include something in a statute, they would have done so. And absent legislation changing Title 61, I disagree with number 7, and termination is not within the board's domain, but rather, again, within the authority of the commissioners. Number 10, I have to say, is my favorite. And I mean that very sarcastically, because it states that this policy does not preclude the office of the county controller, the office of the DA, or the office of the sheriff from conducting their business, but basically seeks to preclude the commissioners from performing duties within their authority. So I object to the entire thing. Recently also, I mean, how far are we going to go down the road? Does the board now have to, I mean, based on past practices, the place was a dumping ground for people to just give jobs to people who weren't even really qualified to be a CO. And everybody has agreed with me on that. But now all of a sudden, I take interest in the prison, do wonderful things there. For 2 years, I have a slew of things that I have done to improve that place and generate revenue and cut costs. And now all of a sudden, what is the board, where does, like, we're open to Pandora's box. Does the board have the authority to, or have to approve everyone right down to a secretary? I mean, there was a recent hire on 1/25/2022 of Russ Ruthie in a job called an administrative officer. This was a job that was previously, Jerry Dempsey was in it. And it's been vacant for over a year. Nobody has missed the job or indicated that the job needed to be fulfilled due to any tasks not being performed at the prison. I did not see this approval to hire. It's not signed by anyone, including the warden, other than Commissioner Shermack and Commissioner Notarianni. So is this hire void because it was not approved by the board? I mean, how far do you want to go down the rabbit's hole? So in summation, I think that all of the board members should really take a look at this policy, because you are exposing yourselves to liability. You're stripping the commissioners from performing duties, which we have a fiduciary and ethically responsibility to do. The prison is $30 million out of a $145 million budget, but we're supposed to apparently ignore it. And I disagree with that. And I have done everything I can to include the warden and the deputy wardens in everything that I've done there to make it better for the residents, the inmates, our employees, the county. But for a reason unbeknownst to me, because of the latest atrocity of an investigation that was performed, which was found uncorroborated, by the way, I am being blamed for that at the exclusion of everybody else. And at that executive session, my impression was that we were going to, even though, again, I think that it's not within the prison board's authority to establish HR policies and procedures for disciplining employees or conducting investigations, but I was open to at least hearing the board out in the event that they were going to, you guys were going to provide us with a fail-safe procedure and protocol for handling HR investigations, so that the disaster that was previously occurred doesn't happen again. And that we afford our employees more respect and protection than we did to the last one. And that's not what's done here. I think it's very clear what the purpose of this is. So having said that, I think I've noted all of my my objections, and you can now take a vote if so be it.
Mr. Chairman, I think our goal here is to take politics out of the prison. So therefore, I'd amend my motion with respect to the third whereas paragraph to delete exclusive and renew the motion to pass 22-3013 as amended.
So
And I
you
would
just,
just like to say that I agree with you, Mark, that politics should play no purpose in, or have no purpose in county government at all. Unfortunately, the reality is that it does. But the whole reason why I wanted, and I had reached out to Labor Council to get proper procedures and protocols in place was to take the politics out of it, but rather have a consistent list of policies to be followed regardless of who it is that's being investigated, so that we can afford that person confidentiality and respect in conducting that investigation, none of which was done in the prior one most recently. But I thank you for saying that.
So just so I have it, so you just want to amend your motion to approve the policy with the word exclusive in the third, whereas on the first page, stricken.
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. On the question.
Judge, if I may, paragraph 4. What I'd
First
like to,
page?
yeah, page 2, paragraph 4. What I'd like to do is ask the board to consider a further amendment, because to the commissioner's point, and as well as for the 3 commissioners, I still need, or they need the ability clearly as commissioners, in the event of, say, an emergency at the prison, if they need for some reason to be there in their capacities as commissioners, I'd like them to have the ability, certainly, and I think the law would provide them certainly the ability to be there. So
What
I
number,
think
Frank? I'm sorry, what number?
number 4. So that's where it requires the appointment, you know, for any prison board member to go to the prison. That's where it requires the appointment with the warden. So all I'm requesting, and I think some very simple language could modify it, is if we simply say, you know, any visits to the prison by any board member regarding operation or management of the prison shall be made by appointment with the warden, excepting, you know, emergency circumstances, which would require any of the 3 commissioners' presence, and then continue on with the paragraph. I think we need to just simply incorporate language that would allow the commissioners to access or be in the prison in the event they need to, in their capacities as commissioners and as the overall governance of the county, if a circumstance arose, without having to go through the formality of an email to Warden Betty.
And Frank, thank you for that, because number 4, if it ends, the warden shall not be required to make such appointment absent a vote by the prison board. So the warden, we talk about chain of command, but no one acknowledges the commissioners as the top of the chain of command. And this is saying that the warden can deny access to a commissioner to enter a county building. I mean, I'm pretty sure that isn't the deed in the name of the commissioners. I mean, we're the commissioners, they're county buildings. I don't think Title 60, I know Title 61 does not give the board the authority to do that. And also, you know, the warden, by not complying with what the commissioner wants, because we do have oversight of the warden in the prison, it would put the warden at a possible insubordination for not listening to a commissioner.
Look, and I think ultimately, right, I think we're all on the same page of what the goal of the policy is. So
I disagree with that.
All right, but I'm comfortable as the solicitor if we had language in there accepting out emergency circumstances, because then I know and I'm comfortable that you folks as commissioners have the ability in those circumstances to go in if need be. You know, this
I don't believe a
policy
commissioner can be kept out of a county building, and I'm not going to be told that I am.
All right, well, this policy, I don't have an issue with accepting, as I said, if we could include that language, because I think what the policy is intended to cover is non-emergent circumstances where, for whatever reason, a prison board member decides they want to go over to the prison, whatever that reason may be. So other than that.
Respectfully, I don't think it's necessary, but Commissioner Dominic, did you have a key to the prison?
I don't know.
Did you have a key to the prison?
I did.
Did you lose it?
I lost all my keys, but subsequently found them.
Did that require the prison to replace the locks because of you losing the keys?
It did, and I did not ask to be given a second key. What had happened is my lanyard was around my neck and it fell off when I was looking at sheds. I subsequently found it 3 days later underneath the shed that I was looking for. they changed the locks, and first of all, I never asked for a key in the first place. It was given to me. I don't
Was
need a
it
key
given to you with
prison.
the authority of Warden Betty?
He was there, yes. And so that, first of all, I never asked for it. I always ring the bell. I never know what key it is anyway, frankly. But secondly, the warden, I did change the locks, and you can ask him, he was joking with me about the fact that I lost it. That's why they had to change the locks. And I said to him, I don't need a key to the prison. I don't want another key.
So it's
no.
your statement that Warden Betty gave you the key to the
My
prison?
statement is that we were in a room and there were about 3 or 4 of us, including Warden Betty. And yes, they all said they were going to give me a key. I did not ask for a key. I do not need a key. I'm fine with buzzing up.
Then respectfully, Warden Betty, I'd ask you, did you provide Commissioner Dominic with a key to the prison?
No, I did not.
And he knew I had a key and never objected. So again, I don't need Mark.
All right, let's get back to the topic at hand, and the topic at hand was Mr. Ruggiero's suggestion. Frank, my hesitation is, with the term emergency. I mean, I deal with people on a daily basis who come in and tell me they have an emergency, and anybody can decide that what they want to do is an emergency. And let's face it, the prison is not like any other county building. It's not like the courthouse or the Globe store or any place else. It's a place where we house and restrict movement of people. So it's some language can be drafted to address that. I'm happy to consider it.
And just for the record, I don't really go to the prison. I mean, I stopped in there and I don't even think I saw the warrant. It was 20 to 5 to drop something off to Deputy Warden Purvis. And I didn't see the warden. That was 3 weeks ago. And prior to that, I had not been in the prison since we had a meeting with the warden and with WellPath, and that was back in October. So I don't know, Commissioner Shermack, he goes to the prison and talks to individuals. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't know why this was made an issue. It's not like I love to live at the prison.
David, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, Your Honor, if I may, this is a new and pretty broad policy. It's an issue that hasn't really come up and been focused on before. It covers a lot of ground. I know that the prison board members and you and I and Mr. Ruggiero spent a lot of time trying to forecast the implications and how this would be carried out. With that said, I think at some point, as it's implemented, if you vote on it today and we encounter unforeseen difficulties, at some point we could come back and by vote amend the motion. I'm hesitant to start making too many red lines as we sit here with the motion pending as it stands. I think we've looked at it and, we could do it in its entirety after a few months or whatever we see what issues arise. It is a secure facility. The discussion was about appointments with the warden. I think there's nothing, if there was a fire or something that the commissioners or anybody else needed to go out there, they could. But then when we start about entering a secure facility that state law vests in the control of the warden, whose appointment is vested in the prison board, I'm hesitant to get too broad in amendments at this point.
And I had a conversation with
one
Frank
sec.
yesterday. Frank and I had a conversation yesterday on the telephone, and I explained my hesitations, and he didn't. I think his words were, "I don't disagree with you." Now, Frank is not a prison board solicitor. He is our chief solicitor. He works at the behest of the commissioners. So I really don't feel that the commissioners are being properly represented in the wrongdoings that this policy projects. I mean, luckily I'm an attorney, so I know what I'm talking about, but moving forward for future commissioners, and it's just setting a bad precedent. And again, it's placing more liability on the board, and it's making more of a potential conflict for Mr. Attorney Powell.
Well, I think what David says is accurate. I think that this is not written in stone, and as we go, we're always free to come back and amend it as we go based on our experiences.
So let me leave it at this, at least from my perspective. And I did speak with Commissioner Dominic yesterday, and yes, there were points we agreed on, points we disagreed on. Here's the thing from my perspective with number 4. I could take it 2 ways, and I'm not being smart. Because it simply says that any board member regarding only operations or management must make an appointment, I can read that to understand that if it is an emergency, then that's not included within the policy. That doesn't have anything to do with operation or management, arguably, so therefore they can go. Or we can carve out language and include it within the document to try to be as specific as we can. I understand we can't catch every scenario, but I also do, understanding the reason for the policy, I have to be careful not to exclude my commissioners in their entirety from a particular location. And I'm only talking about it in the instance in which I'm using the term emergency, and I understand, Judge, I get all those calls too, someone else's emergency is not necessarily ours, but
where does it state that the board has the right to, or any board has the right to prohibit a commissioner from entering a county building?
I don't think, Debbie, I'm sorry, I don't.
Or that we can only go to a county building based on an emergency. I mean, where is that authority? What baffles me is the fact that instead of us trying to do what's right for the county and our employees to make sure that the atrocity that happened recently in the investigation of a case, which resulted in the HR director recusing himself and subsequently quitting, among other things, instead of focusing on how to make the process better, instead, this is just targeting me, apparently, based upon the board's preconceived notions about what took place based upon their one-sided facts given to them by their friend, the warden.
Section 1731 of the statute provides that the board and the officers appointed by it shall provide for the safekeeping, discipline, and employment of inmates and the government and management of the correctional institution. This is what we're doing with this policy.
I would like to know, in the last 2 years, what have I done to put that in jeopardy? Have I not improved? I have memos from Captain Walsh and from Mr. Warden Betty talking about all the improvements that I've done and how fascinated he was with my GTL contract. So I just think that it is disingenuous that I have killed myself for 2 years, never trying to exclude the warden, never, to try to make that cesspool a better place. And one thing goes wrong, which isn't my fault, mind you, but at the same time, I'm the scapegoat and everybody wants to, like, this is a witch hunt. So you can pass your policies as amended or whatever. I have no doubt now that I am no longer, I made the changes that I feel should have been made at the prison. I had other ideas, but at this point, it's not worth the aggravation, frankly. So I have no doubt that the prison will revert back to the cesspool that it was prior to my involvement. So Godspeed.
Anybody else have anything to offer? Okay, so I forgot, did I get a second on the motion Mr. Powell made, the amended motion?
I second it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Nothing else to be offered. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes, nay.
Okay. The ayes have it. The policy is approved. Okay, now, Tracy, you said that we had some emails from the public.
Yes.
Okay.
The first email is from Terrell Mosley, the Community Outreach Coordinator, Legal Assistant at the Lewisburg Prison Project from Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. They say, I hope this email reaches this committee in good health and best of spirits. I'm writing in regards to the MAT program I inquired about a few months ago, at which time the warden said he would be giving monthly updates as to the growth, productivity, and data associated with it. If you could please let it be known, it would be greatly appreciated as well and helpful in the overall pursuit of combating the opioid crisis Pennsylvania has been experiencing. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Warden, can you respond to that?
Sure. I will certainly ensure that if I had said that, completely slipped my mind, I apologize. I apologize to Mr. Mosley. I have no issues whatsoever. I will discuss this with Deputy Warden Purvis and the folks from WellPath. They both will be key to the information that would be available for the MAT programming.
Okay, thank you. And there was more than one, right, Tracy?
Right. The second one is from Tammy Wood of Dunmore. This one is regarding medical care at the prison, and it's I'm not going to read the inmate's name.
Okay.
Because she mentions this person's, first, middle, and last name. So I don't know if that's appropriate regarding their, medical history and the medical care that they didn't receive. I mean, I'll send it to the warden.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best course of action.
Right. So he could take a look at it. But she goes into really graphic detail. So I also necessarily don't know if that's something that you want me to read out loud, but they begin.
Well, if it's involving an individual inmate and his or her medical care, I don't think it's something, for public discussion.
Okay.
But if you would send that on to the warden, then the warden.
Okay.
See to an appropriate response, Warden.
Absolutely. I'll take a look at it. I'll see if it's on our radar. If it's not, I'll put it on the radar.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Tracy?
No, that's it. Those were the two.
Okay. All right. Any other business from the members?
Judge, can I just ask, I know Tim had sent out that email earlier today. I don't know what the board's desire is with the list of potential correctional officers he wanted to hire. And I mean, I know under the statute and of course the policy you folks just passed, you guys would opine on that or recommend or whatever it is you'd want to do. So I don't know if Tim was looking for you guys to consider doing that today, or if you're waiting until the March meeting to do that.
I think that was his purpose, Frank.
I think so.
And there's also the hiring of Russ Ruthie without board approval as well. So, I mean, if you're gonna approve every single hire, then approve every single hire or address every single hire. Don't nitpick.
And I'm only, look, I'm just from a legal standpoint, I'm only talking about the wardens or deputies or assistants or the correctional officers, whoever it is that's listed in the statute. That's
Well, then I guess Russ Ruthie's position is null and void until it's approved by the board.
Tim, you sent around an email with 10 names.
Yes, Your Honor, I did. I sent it out this morning to all members of the prison board. I mean, the normal procedure yesterday would have been for me to fill out request to hire forms and send them to the Human Resources Department for them to do whatever they do with it and then ultimately get them up to the commissioners for signatures. And I was concerned if this motion did pass as it did, and I didn't have that work done beforehand, which I didn't, so that we didn't have to hold it off for another month, that I could get approval of those 10 individuals and 2 part-timers that I had sent out to all board members.
Has everybody had a chance to look at the email? I did.
I did, but if I can have a question to Warden Betty. To professionalize the prison, I think we need to entrust you to do your job and hold you accountable for that job. So what background checks do you do on these individuals? What training do they have? And what is your recommendation for their hire?
Well, I did a file check. I mean, everybody applied for jobs over the last 2 months or so. I personally reviewed each and every applicant's file, the individuals who I thought would be appropriate for consideration. They were all contacted. They were set up with a tour of the facility so they knew what it looked like and felt like to be behind the bars, so to speak. And then they were interviewed by an interview committee. That interview committee was consistent throughout. And I'm sorry, I had 4 individuals doing interviews, and the second day there was 3 individuals because someone was off on a personal day. But in any case, I took the recommendations from the interview committee, knowing that I already did a preliminary review of their files, and that's whose names that you have. Now, if they were to get signed off on, then part of the hiring process is that they would have to supply us with a criminal history background check. As far as HR goes, I don't know how much, if any, reference checking and work employment or educational background checking that they do, but we don't do that. We do the criminal history background check or have it done from state police and provide it to us.
Your hiring is conditional on passing that, correct?
Yes, yes, and there's a couple other things. I mean, there's things for any county employee to get hired, such as passing a drug screening test. Anymore, I believe that there's a vaccination, not test, but you got to provide proof of vaccination before getting hired. A couple other things. Things kind of intertwine with human resources prior to the individual actually starting here. And then when they start here, they go through a 4 to 5 week course of on-site orientation training from Lieutenant Brown and Sergeant Alloy in our training department. And then we get them on the floor, and within the first year, they go to the Department of Corrections to Elizabethtown for 4 more weeks of training to receive certification.
No. Give me 2
And this list, these are people that you are recommending?
Yes,
Feel
yes, they
comfortable
are,
with
Your
them?
Honor. Yeah. Like I said, I did an initial review of their files. I met them out literally outside my office when they were waiting to go and get interviewed, had a couple words with them. But I'm also empowering and entrusting the individuals that consisted of the interview team with for the recommendations. And it included 2 deputy wardens, a captain and a lieutenant.
Okay. And you have confidence in the people doing the interviewing?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Unless someone else has anything based upon your recommendation, I'd make a motion to hire condition upon the additional background checks from Human Relations.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Are we
Any
going to
opposed?
address, Judge, the hiring of Russ Ruthie? Or are we just going to ignore that?
Well, if
Hiring him
we're
and-
going to address Russ Ruthie, we have to address all the previous one. This
If you want to talk
You're
about
right.
it,
I'm asking, is it retroactive? Is it proactive? I mean,
this is proactive. This is effective as of today. It doesn't
Okay.
apply to any previous hires. Prospective, I should say. Okay. Anything else? Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I
Thanks,
have a
everyone.
second?